So tonight's conversation, we're talking about how relevance fuels massive growth. Right? What is the secret to lasting success? Right? Communication, we understand, is key, and our job tonight is to try to understand and try to talk through how we can stay relevant and how we can achieve clarity. Right? We want to make sure that whatever the information is that we are passing along, that we're given the proper information, right? That we're achieving maximum understanding, and that we're not going into overload. We want to see great success among the community across the board, male, female. We want to achieve greater in our professional life, in our relationships, in our families, right? In our businesses. And one of the best way to do so is through the art of communication. And today we will be talking about the relevancy art of clarity. All right. With that said, we put out our disclaimer for tonight, which is simple. Everyone up here, we like to talk. We think that we're smart, but at the end of the day, we understand that we are masters or experts of our own opinion, of our own perspective. This is why we call our this community the empowering perspective. So we empower your perspectives in the chat. So please join this conversation. Um, and with that said, want to jump straight into the first question tonight, brothers. In the exchange of information, talking about relevancy, how easy or difficult is it to create obscurity?
Very easy. Yeah, I mean especially during this day and age, because we're in a time to where at one point in time, the media that we had for information was news, and we're pretty much limited to that. But now, because of these cellular devices that we have, everybody has a camera, everybody has a microphone, everybody has social media, has the ability to go live. So you have a lot of, and I hate to say this, and it's going to sound strange coming after what you just said in relation to the disclaimer, but we got a lot of people giving advice that should not be giving advice. We got a lot of people talking about things that they are not necessarily qualified to talk about. It's the thing. And you guys, I tend to talk about the difference between the truth, what is true, facts, opinions. I'm sorry, facts, assumptions, and opinions. And it's not like opinions don't matter. Um, for the most part, opinions matter when your opinion is validated by your profession. And so a lot of times what you hear people ask based upon the profession of the individual is in your professional opinion. And then they'll ask a question relevant to that person's profession, which gives their opinion value. But I the God honest truth, there are a lot of opinions that have zero value in it. And that's where a lot of obscurity come from.
See, I see you came out the out the gate. Okay, I think I'm with Coach on this one because I think sometimes we will take information and you kind of give information overload. Whether you're trying to use big words, you're trying to add buzzwords, you're trying to just change the flow of the conversation just by throwing something in there. So it makes the information that you do have, uh, it's like it's pointless almost because you sometimes you can try to sound so smart that you leave yourself looking a little dumb. You leave yourself looking unintelligent because you showing that you lack a personal connection with the people. You lack a personal connection with what you're talking about. So your words go on fall on deaf ears because the people can't feel you. So your information go is obscure because nobody really understands you nor your point of view.
I like it. I'm with both of you brothers on this one. It's easy. It can it is very easy. especially, and I think two things are important. Um, both parties have to have some understanding of where this conversation is going, right? Because I can ask I can ask uh roll all day questions about the medical field. I don't have no training outside of CLS concerning medical. So if it ain't related to CLS, I'm gonna look at he can be as clear as day, use the proper language. I'll be a deer in the headlight because I don't have no understanding of the information coming forth. I don't have no homework done beforehand, and then vice versa. Even in being smart, having 22 years of of experience in the medical field, you can like you said, you can start throwing out these because we all know the medical field got all these Latin words that some of us have never heard of before, and so you start shooting out these medications and these names and these conditions. You know how many times I've looked at my doctor like he's like, yeah, so if you get the oblaguba ashnak, and I'm like, the what? Yeah, and get it to work right. That's what it sounds like to me. Cause it sounds like he's making up words. I've never heard of what somebody that's why I said something crazy like that to get that face. Cause that's my face when I'm talking to my doctor sometimes. And so he's saying what's right, but it's obscure when it comes to me because there's no ground level understanding of what he's talking about. So I think it happens on both sides. So in that aspect, I would say that's kind of like knowing your audience. You know who you're talking to. If you got to dumb it down for me, dumb it down for me because I don't know that. I don't know what you're talking about. So I do have a question that's not in my notes real quick. So with what y'all have said, because y'all both brought up questions I'm not gonna bring up right just now, but how would you define relevance in your own words, of course, but how would you define relevance?
I think relevance has to do more with connection than it does with being trendy. Sometimes we think something is relevant because, oh, that's the new thing. Oh, they buy in pizza ovens. Oh, they buy in this. When you talk about relevant, it has to connect with the people. It can't be something that, like, if I'm talking to the NRA and I'm talking about fishing poles ain't relevant to what they're looking at. They're looking at pew pews and shells. They're looking at something that could put something down versus standing there throwing it in the water. So it has to deal more with the connection to the people that you're discussing, whatever you're discussing with.
I think when we talk about relevance, we have to understand exactly what arena we're talking about in most cases. Like, Roland, I love your example, but I would turn that because if I am talking to the NRA and I'm talking about the fishing community, most of the fishing community purchase shotguns and things of that nature because of where they go to fish. So I can make that conversation relevant to them based upon how I have the conversation with them, which now I am making reference to the progressive nature of pertinent information as it pertains to this conversation. So sometimes we just think the regurgitation of a bunch of information, or in some cases, the regurgitation of, as we tend to say, 5-syllable words, we think that is relevant, but it's only us trying to prove how smart we are in the space of conversation because we're trying to be the authority of the conversation, as opposed to trying to engage in a progressive, meaningful manner as it pertains to the conversation at hand. So now what I do is I only say things that I believe that that has evidence. And so the belief piece and the evidence piece now becomes the thing that I talk about because that should be in the direction of the progressive nature of the conversation.
I love that. I love both of those because both of y'all are right. There's there may be some things that they may not understand talking about fishing poles because they may not all fish. But on the flip side, most people I know that do fish are also members of the NRA uh, or purchase shotguns or weapons or what have you. But so I do love that because his divine appointment. Thank you for the definition. I was gonna make it very simple. She's gonna say the the state of being closely connected or appropriate, but I do enjoy your definition. Relevance is the contextual quality of something being directly connected to and appropriate for a specific subject or situation. So if there's an opportunity or a window, I can connect them. If there's an opportunity, if the conversation or the topic at hand is is relevant. I saw a TED talk one time and it was talking about technology. I don't have a tech degree or certification. I just know how to use my little gadgets that I got, right? But in that TED talk, he started talking about how exposed my children are when they log in online. Now he made it closely connected to me because now the conversation about it's about my kids being exposed. Uh, and then he started talking about how it links here and I started learning now because something that I don't have much information on, I have better understanding on where he's going because he connected me to the topic. So so now it's relevant to me. So I like that. I like that. So a philosopher Paul Grice has come up with four maximums when we start talking about uh, the art of relevancy and clarity, right? And in those four maximums, he has a quick definition of what's called the cooperative principles, right? And he's saying that people are generally cooperative and they expect others to contribute meaningfully to the point. So when we have conversations, just the art of having a conversation, I'm starting a conversation. I believe that there is information coming back to me. Right, my brothers are here to conversate with me tonight. The chat is here. Whether I prompt a conversation or not, I expect a return on my cooperation in this conversation. I expect Dwayne to respond. I respect Roland to respond, and I think that's for any of us when we have conversations. And some of us have been there. I know three of us have been there. We've talked to a lady in our life once or twice. She came up to us and she pushed out a bunch of information. This, and this, and we didn't respond immediately. And we get that look like, you gonna say something? Right. Maybe y'all ain't never date the same women I dated, but and she's looking at us crazy because she wants us to participate in this conversation, in this sharing of information. And that's the cooperative principle, right? So in there, he gives us four maximums, right? One is the maximum of quality, the maximum of quantity. I apologize. The maximum of quality, the maximum of manner, and the maximum of relation. But we're going to start here with the first principle, the maximum of quantity. My apologies if I'm moving too fast. But on that first question, the question is, given this maximum concept, how can information overload, as Roland started talking about, distort the information that is being given?
Information overload can be something that is frustrating. It's like every Saturday morning, if I'm sitting in my garage or if I'm not, somebody gonna come to my door and try to sell me something. And because I've heard the spiel before, time and time again, every week, I'm already frustrated. I don't want to hear it. I say, okay, bottom line, what it's gonna cost me? I want numbers. I don't care what you're trying to sell me. I want bottom line. And it frustrates them because they're trying to push out more information of what makes their product the best, what makes their product best for me, not even knowing me. And then they try to gain some type of information. So I think at this point, when it's information overload, it it's like you just put a bunch of stuff in front of me and want me to make a decision. And that's one of those places where it's an uncomfortable space for most people when you have a lot of things that you may not understand or you understand very little on. So it's one of those spaces where it's not putting people in a comfortable position, especially when it comes to having a discussion, especially and if it's not a discussion that can take place over time. If it's something that's rushed, something that's forced, it'll be one of those like, okay, nah, I'm good. For me, at least.
No,
And my bad. I apologize. This question says given this maximum concept, and I never gave the concept. I apologize. So the concept, real quick, is given as much information as is needed, but no more. So I just want to put that out there. My apology.
so no, you're good. So the issue here, when it comes down to the maximum of quantity, is that information overload looks different from person to person. That's for starters. Um, so some people like a large amount of information. Some people like clear, concise information. Just get to the point, the facts. So understanding the people that you're talking to is extremely important when it comes down to this particular maxim. For the person who just want clear, concise information, they'll get frustrated. They'll get to the point to where like you'll hear, well, I used to say it like this, you overcooking my grits. You're doing too much. Just get to the point, right? If you get to the point, give me the pertinent information that I need right now to make a decision. And you will hear that a lot, especially in corporate spaces where you have people who have very limited amounts of time. But then there are others who need that information. They need the details surrounding it because, with that being said, that detail gives them clarity. So they want to know the ins and the outs, the origin of the thing, and the culmination of the thing. How do we get to influence this thing? How can this thing be beneficial in the long run? So understanding people, first of all, helps you to understand whether or not they will reach information overload based upon all of the information you have. I will also look at it like this: for some people who are like me, you are the person who will research a lot of information because that clear understanding helps you to understand how to implement it. Well, if you're working for someone who is clear and concise and to the point, and you spent all of these hours researching this information and you put together this big old packet and you want to give them the packet because you want them to read it because you put a lot of good work into it, they be like, yeah, no, just summarize it for me real quick. That can be frustrating to that person. So understanding your audience becomes very important simply because at the end of the day, when a person reaches information overload, they tend to shut down.
I agree, and I like how you broke that down. It's different for each person. Um, it actually streamlines us right into our next question, uh, which is how do we know that the receiver is properly retaining or receiving the information that is given?
Hmm.
I would start off by saying this: feedback is important. Um, Not just verbal feedback, but nonverbal feedback. A lot of times when you're giving a person information, their ability to digest and process, you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their mannerisms, so forth and so on. But then you have to pause at some point to allow them to get in to let you know that they're understanding. And their feedback can come in the form of parroting, paraphrasing, or summarizing. If they parrot, they're just regurgitating what you're saying, but that does not necessarily mean that they clearly understand what you're saying. Parroting is the lowest form of cognition in the realm of communication. However, paraphrasing and summarizing means that they got it, they're understanding it, and they're giving it back to you in different words in different word choices, different contextual information, or even different different scenarios, whatever the case may be. And you hear that a lot. when people say, well, let me make sure I got this clear. And then they take it and they try to add their experience to it just to see if it lines up. And a lot of times it does, because that's how some people process information. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I ain't got nothing. Exactly what he said. I mean, for real, exactly what he said. Because I think that, and this has to do more with relationships, you understanding people, than it does you understanding information. Because if you can understand people, you will know, like, hey, this dude is getting frustrated, or he's not really understanding the thing that I'm saying, but he's me all day. So when you understand people in relationships, then the information that you do have, you can say, okay, I know I'm gonna cut to the chase with this individual, or I know I may need to go more in detail of the nuances of what I'm displaying, so that they can have a better understanding, because that's what they're looking for. So it has more to deal with people than it does information.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of the feedback, let's look over in the chat for a second. Let's see what we got. We got Sister Charlotte Jordan talking about the overload. She said too much information can be overwhelming and may miss what it was intended for. I agree. I like that. Uh, Sister Lisa Key, she brings up, and when you bring up DISC, are you talking about the 4 personality traits? That's what I'm assuming. And so if you don't know, you can do a quick Google search into those 4. I believe it's dominance, influence, consciousness, and miss it, is it steadiness? I believe it's the 4th one.
Steadiness and compliance.
And compliance, yeah. It's been a while since I heard that one myself. My apology, but thank you for that. Sister Nick D said, I do not do well with information overload. I will absolutely ask someone to break for a minute if it turns into a word vomit, as I call it. But I think that's that point that coach is talking about, right? To pause and give feedback, make sure. I think as we go through this conversation, you'll see how a lot of these things create preventive measures if we do it right, right? So when I'm giving information, if I pause to say, hey, are you receiving what I'm saying? Or what's your feedback so far on what I put out so far? That gives that opportunity for them to take a minute and think on what was said so that they can actually start receiving it before you start pushing more information out. Your thoughts, gentlemen? Yes.
Yeah, I think that this is where you can recognize whether someone, because a lot of people have attention deficits, attention disorders, which won't provide them an opportunity to receive information the way you're choosing to give it at that time. So that's where I say relational value is of the utmost, because when you understand who you're dealing with, and it doesn't take a whole half an hour to understand, like, oh, I'm dealing with somebody who this information is not pertinent to them at this moment. But if I placed it in a different format or a different arena, then it would be something that they may be more receptive to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I put in the comments just now, I tend to use phrases like, does that make sense? That's my way of taking a tactical pause and allowing them to provide feedback in relation to, what I'm saying. There are other techniques that you can use. You can pause and say your thoughts, whatever technique you use, it really doesn't matter as long as you give the other person the space to kind of process and respond to what they're hearing.
Yeah, and I actually use that phrase a lot. I noticed that's a way of me stopping myself from word vomiting. Like, even when we're on live, I feel I catch myself, and when I start feeling like I'm putting too much information out and it's starting to go in circles, and I know I could lose people, I'll stop and say, does that make sense? Or I hope that makes sense. So that, because that opens up for someone to at least tell me, nah, I didn't catch that, bro. that was too much, or something, So I agree right there. Um, I'm catch one more. His divine appointment said, by overwhelming the receiver with too much information, violating the quantity maximum rule, right? And presenting it in a confusing, disorganized way, uh, violating manner. Oh, she done moved on to manner too. She, I said she ain't new to this conversation, but I do agree. Um, it well, I will make it more of a two-part phrase for me. Like by overwhelming the receiver with too much information, it begins to present in a confusing and disorganized way. Right? It could be the right information, but that overload definitely makes it confusing. Um, Gentlemen, what say you? Forward.
I actually think we're going to unpack that as we continue to progress. I do have a comment, but I want to hold it until you get to that stage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Same thing. All right. Um, let's get our last question on quantity, and then we'll move forward. So, is there a way of knowing that you have given the adequate amount of information? And I think we kind of covered it, but just now. And
I think that's with the feedback. When the person is giving you actual feedback about what you're discussing, and they seem energetic or involved in the conversation rather than being reclusive, where it's like, okay, I really ain't understanding. Hurry up and get it over with.
Yeah, I think so. This one is tricky. Um, and I'm gonna go from, because a lot of times we like to have surface level conversations. And again, I might be getting a little ahead, but if so, I do apologize. I think a lot of times we have surface level conversation. It just becomes a spew of information. But then the question is, do you understand it based upon the conversation that we're having? And I think the only way that we can get to the point of understanding is that there has to be some type of conceptual synthesizing that happens in the moment. And if I can synthesize that information that you're giving me in that moment based upon combining that information with some type of relevant experience, now that kind of gets me to the point of understanding how to apply it. I think we stop short of that. We stop short of just spewing information. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. Okay, cool. Moving on to the next. And so at that point, conversation becomes meaningless. So I think the way of knowing that you have given adequate information is that the person can actually synthesize it, apply it to their own relevant experience, and then they can actually understand how to apply it. We stop short of the application way too often.
man, I like that. I like that. Real quick, I want to. There was a question in the chat I saw while you were speaking. Sister Verlene McCoy, she said, "Is it possible that some people do not understand when a person is expressing themselves and not being overly sensitive?" Hmm. This That's a good question. Is it possible? I gotta ask it. I was asking it again in my head. Is it possible that some people do not understand when a person is expressing themselves and not being overly sensitive? You know our rule up here. If you put is it possible? We're gonna say sure. It's possible, but
But this is precisely what I just got finished explaining.
mm,
You can express yourself. And again, like we talked about, I think it was last week before last, whenever the case may be, you can express yourself. And what might be overly sensitive, the one person may not necessarily be overly sensitive to the other person. But at the end of the day, the question that we have to entertain is, number one, why am I expressing myself? Number two, what are my expectations based upon what I'm expressing? And like I said before, if I am expressing myself because I believe you're supposed to do something based upon that expression, that can be problematic. Because at the end of the day, my feelings are for me. Me expressing something to you is probably just to make you aware of it. Or, like I said before, it might be because I did not necessarily understand, the perspective on which you said and or did a particular thing. So I may have taken it wrong. So I think all of those things come into play. It's not just the expressing, it is the secondary and tertiary effects that happen after that expression. Do you expect me to do something? I hope not. If you want me to listen, that's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen. But at the end of that, now what? Because if you have an expectation for me to do something, you might be disappointed. Now, again, if I am responsible for the feeling that you're experiencing right now, because of something I did. Now I understand it. And now the ball is in my court to make any micro adjustments based upon my behavior so I don't commit that trespass again. So I think all of this under this particular question is available. But is it possible? Yes, it is absolutely possible.
It's definitely it's definitely possible, and that's where you got to know body language and things of that nature. Because I'm a person where if I feel something, it's right here. I don't care what it is. If I think you said something stupid, you're gonna say it right here. And it's not like I gotta, and I'm not hiding from it or anything like that. But sometimes people that know me will see me look a certain way. They're like, what? And I'm just looking a certain way because I can't sit still. I got this thing. That's why I'm always moving and everything. But I think people need to get to a point to where they aren't looking to find fault with another person's expressions or find fault with how they're saying things or taking it personal. I think when you deal in information, information is what it's about. Now you do give information with your body language and things of that nature, but if I'm giving information and you may be sighing, you may be doing certain things, so I may think, okay, maybe I'm going too long, or maybe so I can't take it personal. That's where you ask those open-ended questions where they can give you feedback about what's going on, so that you can know where they are in the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a relational question, right? Because my question in response is, how well do you know me? Um, because if it's somebody I work with, I don't talk to that much, I may not know because I didn't know. I did. There's a brother I know better now on a job that I didn't know well for a while when we first started working together when he got there, and the first time we had a conversation simply about football. Now, granted, I must say he's an older Cowboy fan, so you already know how the conversation went. Bless his heart. But I didn't know that he was that expressive, and now I know that's how he talks about just things he's passionate about, and I don't take it personal. But the first time, I was like, this man ready to fight me over these Cowboys. You crazy. Um, but but the relational piece kicked in, and now I got to understand his expression when he talks about his Cowboys, when he talks about certain things. So I, I don't take it personal. So I think it's relational. How well do you know me? Now if I know you, sometimes I can know you, and I know you to be emotional, and I'm looking at it. It can cause me to start looking at everything you say from that expression of she just they just in their feelings, they just emotional, they just doing what they normally do, and you that may not be the case. So relate that relational piece can work for us and against us sometimes. um with that with that said, I was trying to make sure I didn't miss anything good. With that said, the second maxim in this conversation is the maxim of quality, right? So truthfulness is the principle here. It says, "Do not say what you believe to be false or what you lack adequate evidence for." Right? So with that said, the first question I have for this topic is, if you are unsure of the validity of portions of your information or your position you give, is there a scenario in which you would still give that information?
what's the scenario of us giving this information first? Because if I'm giving this information to somebody and I got to put my name on it, I got to know that what I'm saying is valid, is true, or something. I can't just give information and I'm kind of putting my reputation and my name on something. I don't know. I would have to have a scenario where this would take place and I'm not privy to this beforehand.
Well. So this maxim focuses on belief and evidence. And I think when we look at this particular maxim, there are things that we believe that we do not necessarily have the relevant evidence of it yet. So is there a scenario in which you would give that information? Absolutely. Right? We do it every week. It's called the Bible. There are certain aspects of the Bible that I do not have relevant evidence of because I have yet to experience it. But do I believe that it will come to pass? Absolutely, because that is my belief. So this maxim says either or. That's the key. If I believe it, I don't necessarily have to have relevant evidence of it. If I don't necessarily believe it, but I do have evidence of a thing, then I can look at it from the perspective of we all are different people. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different upbringings. We all have different educational levels. Therefore, the average person, and I say it that way, the average person, if they do this and they do this, then this should be the outcome for the average person. But will that be 100% true for everybody? Absolutely not. Simply because of all of the things that I laid before you: upbringing, educational level, experiences, things of that nature. So when you look at this maxim, again, remember it's either or, belief or evidence. If you got both, that's even better.
I like that because the tables turn when we change the conversation, and so I'm with Roland. If we're talking about something here, we're just talking about regular information sharing or business wise, or talking about a certain market, or
Yeah, like iPhone is better than Samsung. I'm sorry.
I mean, we got sufficient evidence that Samsung is better, but I digress. uh, and I believe it, so I don't need to show you my evidence. but once we start talking about scripture, it changes the tone of the conversation now, because my faith is the evidence of things not seen, right? So I may not have. I know I butchered that a little bit, but I'm paraphrasing, running through. I can see the preacher's faces change, but 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 so when I'm talking from that aspect, sometimes the evidence is just my testimony. You may not believe my testimony, but it's my story, and how I believe that the Most High has played it out for me, and so in that I have sufficient evidence in sharing that with you. Now you may not receive it because I can't pull up a video, right? Because I can't go pull up an article. But this is what happened to me. I know that he's protecting me. I remember the dude pulling a gun out on me in the hood, not firing. But after we took off, that thing was right. So to me, that was you can't tell me the Most High didn't protect. Now somebody else may say, "Oh, he just didn't know how to clean his weapon." That thing sure did shoot when I got away. I know that for sure. But I'm joking. That's a true story, but I'm joking, right? But yeah, thank you, sis. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But I'm glad that you brought that to the table, because, like you said, we do it weekly. We talk about the things in the scriptures. Some of the things, historians have done some work and have saying, "Hey, we have evidence that this happened, evidence that this happened. This lines up with historical truths or evidence that we have." But for the most part, a lot of it is we believe because of our faith. But I can't show you where Noah's Ark is at, but I'm gonna tell you that flood came, and Noah and his family was protected, right? Don't ask me how, because we still here. That's how I know. Next time. But so I do agree. I do agree. I was about to bring up uh, Lisa Dove Washington's comment. Then I saw the invalidation at the end. But I love you anyway, sis. Go Samsung.
She's actually on your team on that one, bro. She said Samsung for the win.
Oh, she was talking to you. I just saw not true. My apology. Like I said, I still love you. See, he corrected me. My bad. Go Team Samsung. All right, moving on to the next question. So while you're giving information, how would you validate information prior to giving it? And I know we have scripture, right? Well, I'll let y'all. I get mine that, but before you give out that information, right, making sure that it's valid, like Roland said, putting his name on it, how would you validate it prior?
I think validating information has to do now. If we go in scripture, you validate information one by what's written, when it was written, who was written to, the time that it was written, and there are a lot of things because you got to look at when it comes to that. Now you take a westernized mindset, put it back over in the Eastern culture, and see, okay, what was going on at the time? How were they living? How were they moving? What type of idioms were they using? What type of language concepts were going on? And what was going on at the time to make them think or say things of this nature? And then historical proofs and also cultural evidences, whether it be, you can find pottery, you can find teeth, you can find graves, you can find a lot of things going on that went on during that time to say, okay, this was going on, so this is what transpired doing this. So when you push out your information, you're just laying out the facts that were not in the writings that you're reading, but they are the evidence that was found at the same time of the writings. So you can marry the two together.
The maximum of quantity. I'm just saying. Listen, there's only one way I need to validate, the future of what he promised. That's what I'm saying. I don't need to validate past. I just need to understand his character. Once I understand his character, then his character tells me, based upon his word, that he doesn't change. So even I hate to make this sound like a what's the guy named Ty Tribbett song, but if he did it before, he'll do it again, right? So it's like I agree with everything that Roland is saying, but that's a lot because at the end of the day, his character is the thing that I hinge my promises on, not those people. I appreciate those people and their experiences and things of that nature. Those people give me evidence in his word, but his character is the evidence that I need. And his character is the thing that ties me to what the promises that he made. Now, that's in that particular arena. When we're talking about in a different arena, there has to be a consistency. It's like in the science realm. In order for a thing to become law, there has to be a hypothesis that is formed. Once the hypothesis that is formed, then we got to test it and keep testing and keep testing and keep testing it, and then test it again and then test it again. And the culmination of all of these tests help us to conclude that this will 100% happen, or there's a high probability that it will happen. So that's what validation looks like. If it's in this natural world, it has to do with testing to come up with an expected end or a high probability of an expected end. If we're talking about the scripture, it's him. He is the assuring factor that what he promised will actually come to pass.
See, but when we saying him, I think some of us that could be him, Superman, him, Aquaman, or him, anything like that. So if I'm just looking, and that's why some people look at the scriptures as this Santa Claus coming out of the sky that's going to do a lot of things for him, because they like, okay, well, if he do it today, if he did it once, he'll do it again, like you say, Ty Tribbett said. But he may not want to do that for me, the same way he did it for them. So I can't count on him being like he was with whomever to be that way with me, because he may want to do something different. So I need to know, okay, is this some fictional uh character reference, or did this happen? So and that's why, I say, when we look at the verbiage and what happened and what was going on back then, I can't always say, like some people will say, well, look at Jonah in the belly of the big fish. People say, well, in the belly of the big fish, and then they try to make that their lives. Like, no. So now is that, am I going to go out here and the largemouth bass going to swallow me up, or do I have to go through a trial and I have to depend on him versus look at what he told me to do and turn away from it?
Did he just agree with me by not agreeing with me? It sounded like he agreed with me just now.
But it's, I'm saying, we rarely disagree, but I think that some people can take the "is him" and make it to be like a fictional character, or
Oh, yeah,
reference.
I got you.
Whew. Man, y'all said a lot. Man, y'all said a lot. I'm listening to y'all and then looking at the chat. Yeah, yeah. In the words of his divine appointment, ooh, child. Um, but I get it. For me, this is it's an easy answer. Is how easy it is depends on the person, but scripture validates scripture, right? Now in my personal studies, I'm with you, Roll. We got to understand. We have to have a level of cultural understanding of the people, uh, because we're just assuming we understand how they said it or how they meant it. Because there are idioms that are said, and um, there's some things that are literal. So I think sometimes we mix them. Sometimes we think things are not literal and we take them as idioms, and some things are idioms we take them as literal. But we don't know that unless we actually do, as you and his divine said, by using some external sources sometimes. So I agree, but I can use I can get scripture that backs up scripture, because nothing in the scripture is not validated in the scripture. Now, as far as when people might ask, "What's your evidence of the ark? What's your evidence of Noah of Jonah going into the belly of the fish?" Listen, there's enough evidence that he's done what he said he did.
Man, if you participate in conversations like that, good on you. I ain't got time for that.
That part. So, but when we start talking about other things, like I agree, you have to have some level of knowledge, and some conversations are prepped, some conversations are not prepped. But I'm quick to tell you, hey, listen, I don't know, but what I think is, and that means what I'm telling you, I can't validate and I can't tell you it's the truth. But my opinion is is this. Other than that, I ain't got nothing else to say. I can't participate too far. All right. So don't ask me leading questions, because I think people that do that sometimes know you don't have the adequate information. So they're trying to lead you to the point that they want to make. I'm careful of that. But with that said, my next question is, what role could statistics play in validating that process? Because we're talking about validation. Does statistics play a role? How do they play a role? Can they be dangerous? Floor is yours.
Yeah, I kind of just gave that answer. Like, do statistics play a role in it? Yes, but it's also important for us to check the source, because at the end of the day, I can make statistics say what I wanted to say in the direction of what I needed to say. So it's like, in the space of testing, there are certain, what's the word I'm looking for? There are certain control measures that we use for these tests. So it's like, based upon the number of tests that we use, we can come up with the statistics. Out of 100 tries, 95 of them worked out the way that we anticipated it. Well, that's not going to be a law because of that 5%, right? So the statistical data validates that this is not a law. This is more of a theory. However, it's a high probability that if you do this thing, then it actually will work. But again, I say when we start talking about other things, like I give you an example. Statistically speaking, men over this age in the African American community have a high rate of whatever. Well, okay, cool. I know that you did not do that test to get that information off of the entire population because I was not part of that test. So you took a sample, which is a small number to represent the whole. So those numbers are a little bit more obscured because of different things that factor in. Of course, environment, again, upbringing, some of the things that you may have been through. Did you get the shot? Did you not get the shot? What your vaccination patterns look like, how healthy are you? All of those things factor in. So again, like I said, you have to verify the information. Like, just don't take raw statistical data and say, okay, well, this is what it is. Is it stuff to if it is it something to kind of help us move in a direction of being more right as it pertains to it? Sure. But again, I will always verify the source when it comes down to certain things.
Can we have that question again? So I can. Yeah, I think when it comes to stats on certain things, it may be necessary. And when you're dealing with, like a lot of people will say, like a lot of us will say, well, high blood pressure runs in my family, heart disease runs in my family. And they discount that you eating hog, mog, chitlins, and all this other stuff that build up clogged arteries. You're not taking that into consideration. You just thinking that, hey, this is a hereditary thing. It's not a hereditary thing. Bad eating is hereditary. So yeah, it's gonna happen like that. But we don't. I've always seen, like, even when they do it on TV, they say, well, the census said. I wasn't a part of the census. I'm like, coach, so you didn't, I wasn't a part of it, but it's all of us now. So when you do stats that incorporate a whole, it's like, nah, that's really misleading. And misleading stats can lead people to falsities. But when you talk about the scripture and stats, I don't know. I only got to look at one stat, and what he did, what he's done for me, because it becomes a faith based thing and not a one for one, because it's not a one off, because it's always him and I. It's not him and what he did for you and all this other stuff. Because if I start going to look at what he's done for everybody, now I go looking with my hand out versus me looking to see how can I be obedient to be walking in his will and not, walking in, hey, I did this, I did that. So now the stack goes on my side of what I've done versus what he can do.
Man, I'm loving this. Jump to the chat real quick. I see under this whole maxim I'm looking at, Sister Charlotte Jordan told us, she said, check your source. Where did you get your information? Is it based on facts and truth? Um, and it's kind of why I wanted to get down to the statistics, because I feel the same way is true. Checking your sources can be tricky, right? I think when we having a conversation, sometimes you have to build a ground layer so we understand each other's mindset, because you may not receive what I receive as a good source, and vice versa, you know. So so for me, I always get into this little gray area, like how do we determine that this is a good source? Because I've seen history. Like, let's take COVID for an example. There were a few doctors who spoke out against, the vaccine that came out so quickly. Since someone brought up COVID, that's why, came out so quickly. And some of these doctors, especially even the ones that had Nobel Peace Prize for their medical work that they've done, all of a sudden we were told that they were lunatics, they were crazy, they didn't have adequate experience in that field. These are Nobel Peace Prize winners. Now we're saying that they're terrible doctors. So you may still, I may go, I'm gonna listen to this doctor. He'd been at it for a while, but you may say, well, the medical field is saying that he's this, and this. So I'm not receiving that information. Hopefully that made sense, but I just wanted to get y'all opinion on that right there.
When we're talking medically, we understand that medical professionals, doctors, and such are given authority to practice medicine. So that means they may give you something to practice on so that they can now put you in the pool and say, okay, this is what happened to Gaddy. This is what happened to Coach. This is what happened to Roland when we gave them. So we, we become guinea pigs. And if we're looking at it in that frame of thought, talking about this quality, the quality becomes, okay, what happened now with these individuals? So, hey, it's a trial and error thing now with that.
Well, and more so on the, like, how do I validate that source? He's been like, this has been a credible source at once upon a time. Now we're saying that this is not a credible source. So just like when we talk about statistics can be screwed, they can be misused. I think when we talk about validating our sources, I believe the same thing can be true.
It can, but I think it'll end up being like talking about politics. People gonna choose a side, and people, even though something may be detrimental to them, they'll still choose it because they have some sort of faith in it. So Johnson and Johnson, oh, they came up with something in 6 months. Moderna or whomever, and you're coming up with these vaccines or whatever. I don't even know if we can talk about that because the powers that be don't want you talking about that stuff. So that already tells me something is, not so nice about it. But if you can't make talcum powder that doesn't give me some type of disease, am I really trusting you to make something that goes inside my body to not give me some? So that's how I look at it. That's just a personal thing. And I think that's where people with stuff like that, it's always going to be a personal choice.
Until it's not. Because there are groups of people who didn't have a choice. They were made to do it because of what it worked. So I think the question, although I think it's a good question, I think the question is a little far forward. The question that I ask is, why do we believe there were Nobel Peace Prize winners based upon all of their wonderful accolades that were told to you? I never experienced it. I never seen any of the wonderful things that they did. I just believed what somebody told me because that's what they said on TV. And because that's the case, oh, okay, well, that's the thing. And that's kind of like the whole point behind all of this. When we start talking about like the relevance theory, it's like understanding relevant pockets of information to understand the value, that it is adding to a particular conversation. Sometimes we adopt the conversation way too late and we agree to all of this, but we never question it. We question this portion of it. You should have questioned it back here. You should have questioned the fact that they said that this person was a Nobel Peace Prize winning doctor. What are the qualifications for that? How did that person separate themselves from any other doctor out there? Because I know a lot of great doctors that work really hard and have done a lot for people. I even know of a doctor that did a lot for people and has gone on to another life because of the work that person has been doing. No one talks about it, going to different countries, helping people, underprivileged, things of that nature. So it's like, I hear all of that and it sounds really good back here, but then we get over here and we say, okay, well, now let's question this. No, we need to question this back here. Who said that they were that good?
And I liked it because that was my point overall of asking the question. When we start talking about sources, right? There's so much information out there on 2 to 3 sides of fences sometimes, depending on the topic you're talking about. And so, yes, when we say check our sources, that's personal. That doesn't validate the information necessarily for me. It validates it for you but not necessarily for me. So I said, once you, if you believe in that source, you believe in that source, you roll with it. You continue to study. But I don't think the research I don't think researching or learning should ever stop. Period. That's just me. When we having this conversation, there's a lot of good things in in the chat. We try to grab some of them. If y'all, if you could help me out, Coach, as well. Lisa Keys also said, "I validated through by understanding the ultimate information provider has provided." And I think that's kind of the point right there too. The information, understanding the ultimate information provider has provided. I think I understand what she, I got to go look, like kind of what you say. Why was he a Nobel Peace Prize winner? Let's go and look up his work. Let's go get the full information before I accept or deny what he says. Right. So I agree there.
And while you're looking out, when I said personal choice, I wasn't talking about getting it. That's still a personal choice too. Whether or not you want to keep your job, that's still personal choice. But I'm saying personal choice to believe the information. That's what I was referring
to. I agree. And even with that, I just believe that I was protected by the Father. He told me, we talked about it during that time, Ro, and we shared what we were both seeing and what we were both feeling. The Most High was telling us, and he told me not to take it. I was about to take it because y'all don't know, I'm putting Ro's information out there. I'm not HIPAA qualified, so I don't have to protect HIPAA. But man, I ain't never seen nobody down from COVID for 6 months. But his wife had him in prison for like 18 weeks. And so when I saw how long he was sick, I was like, find the vaccine quick, because I'm not going down for the count like that. But for me, I was only down, I think when I caught it, I was down for like 3 days. And actually, I had, the first day I had a headache, and I knew I had it because I was taking care of a house full of COVID patients. Then when I got tested, I had it. Then the rest of the time, it was just coughing up mucus out my chest. So, but right when my time was about to expire for me to keep my job, and I still hadn't vaccinated, they changed the policy. They say forcing people to vaccinate and losing their job was non-constitutional. And that happened right on time. And I got promoted the next week. So that's how it worked out for me. And I can't say how it worked out for everybody. And everybody's experience was different. But that was mine. Statistics can be screwed. Sister Lisa Dove Washington says statistics can be used to try to prove any point if used incorrectly. Absolutely. And then, yeah, we did kind of start talking about COVID. His divine, she put a two part in there. She said, I can create a survey from a demographics and make sure it reveals what I want to achieve. In addition, statistics could play a role in the validation process by providing quantitative data or evidence. I don't know why I wanted to say data. I agree with that. Both parts, and it just goes back. It continues in this conversation. We just have to strengthen our source. We have to do our research, And I'm big on once you pick a position, stand on what you believe. So before we move forward, brothers, any alibis, anything left out there? Amen and amen. I to his divine. I agree, and I praise the Most High for that. Let's go on to the next maxim, the maxim of manner. This maxim talks about clarity. Be clear, brief, and orderly, avoid obscurity and ambiguity. I don't know why that word twists me up. Um, I've really got one question on this topic, and that's how would you summarize? Be clear, brief, and orderly.
I'm gonna give one real quick, and I'm gonna come back later. Know what you're talking about. When people are not clear and concise and to the point, they don't necessarily know the information. They're trying to talk themselves into a space to where the other person believe that they're actually knowing it. So it's like, and I've been taught this years ago. If I can't explain it to a seventh grader, I don't know it. I don't know it well enough to explain it. So I'm not ready to talk about it yet. And a lot of times, I think we kind of talked about this previously. A lot of time, because we're so bombarded by information, especially in the social media space, we'll grab information and think we're knowledgeable of a thing, and then we go and attempt to talk about that thing, but we don't really know it. We're aware of it. And that awareness does not give you a depth of knowledge. So you can't be clear and brief and orderly. You have to like talk yourself into relevance. And I'm gonna pause right there and let Roland come in because I really like this one.
Joker said he gonna say one thing. Nah. I think I'm from. I'm a slow talking person. I'm a slow talking person, and I make sure I listen intently. And when a person is speaking very fast or trying to fast talk me, it seems like they're trying to get something over on me because I'm listening to what you're saying. And it seems like if you're trying to speed through it, you're trying to make me miss something. So when you're clear, it's because you studied the information. It's because you've gone through some things. It's because you've gone over this time and time again. So it's second nature. Brief, I'm not trying to keep you long. I'm trying to get you straight to where you need to go, not trying to take you around the corner just to go next door and keeping things orderly. When I'm keeping things orderly, I'm not talking about this and about people and about everything besides the nucleus of what we're talking about. And I don't have to use big words. I don't have to throw a bunch of jargon out there so I can seem smart, so I can seem intelligent and know what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk at the level that we're talking, at the level that you are, not try to talk over your head and not try to fast talk you so that you will miss something.
No, yeah. Sometimes people get excited when they talk. So I can't necessarily say that I am in 100% compliance in that arena. Like knowing the person, like we talked about previously, matters, right? Um, but a person might be excited about the information that they're sharing. So sometimes that may cause them to talk at a rapid rate. But going back to this, because I think this is key. I am an advocate of making sure that you clearly understand a thing before you attempt to relate a thing that you're trying to share with someone else. It's like, and you guys, I'm sure you guys are aware, whether you participated in some type of network marketing venture or whatever the case may be. Like people get that information, they get excited, they really can't explain it, but it's like they're so excited, like they want to share it. Well, I don't. You're not knowledgeable enough about the process of what that company is offering yet to be able to share it. That's why they say don't share it. Just get a couple of people, put me on the phone with them, and let me do the talking for you. Right? That's the reason why, because you don't know enough. You're just excited. Excitement is good, right? But you don't know enough to talk intelligently about it. So I think when I don't like those events. I think when it comes down to this, I think what would be a good rule of thumb is for people to slow down. Just because you got information, that information isn't meant to be shared yet. You have to process it. You have to digest it. You have to make that information relevant in your eyes. Like I talked about synthesizing information earlier. You have to get to the point to where you can synthesize it because you looked at it from different angles, considered this, considered that. You put it in this situation and say, okay, if I did this, then this is what actually happened. And then maybe go out and try it yourself before you start sharing it. And I think that's where a lot of this comes in at. You, in most cases, when you're sharing information and you're over talking, You're over talking because you're not confident in what you're sharing, and you're hoping that other person, like, because you're bombarding them with information, you're hoping that other person sees you as as an authoritative voice on that subject matter.
Couldn't find the mouse for a second. My bad. Man, I I agree. I really don't have much to add because y'all y'all hit that on the head right there. His divine says it's okay to not know something, uh, and I agree with that. It's okay to not know something, and it's so, and I don't. I'm with you, sister Lisa. I do not like those events. I've done it. I think we ventured into. I ventured into those network marketing. There was one that I really did like. It was a travel one, but I've learned something from that. If someone is interested in something I'm doing or I'm saying or I believe or whatever the case may be, and I don't have the adequate information to answer the questions, I understand that there are people who do. And I've had conversations, where I'm like, man, just come on Saturday. Here's a link. Come talk with my brothers. I'm not saying that I'm not adequate to talk about scripture, but I know that these brothers know just as much or more than me, and they could probably answer your question better than I can. I don't want to lose you with what I'm talking about, you know. And so I think that's okay to say, hey, I got a brother, uh, Dwayne Dwyer. You should go check out his site, see and see what he has to offer, because he could help you with some of these things you're trying to talk about. I know enough to get you interested, but not enough to give you the proper information. I agree with that.
But I think that's the rub, right? Um, looking in this world that we live in right now, to where you want everybody to like you. You want everybody to like your channel. You want everybody to like the pictures that you put on social media. You want everybody to like your content. So that's what ends up happening, right? We'll give a surface level, um, a surface level of information, hoping that these people like us. And I've always said, I bet you, especially, and you see it, you see it all throughout social media. This person calls himself a coach. That person shows up. They call themselves a coach, and it happens overnight. They took some little online course. The next thing you know, I'm certified. Okay, cool. And it's funny to me because it's like if I sit down with that person and talk to them for about 5 minutes, give me 5 minutes. Put what was that movie? Think with Baby Boy. Put me in the back seat with him. I bet you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Give me 5 minutes in conversation. That's all. 5 minutes in conversation. And I bet you that person will probably second guess the fact that they are so quick to call themselves a thing. Because now the question is, what is your certification metric? How many hours of doing the thing have you done? Who validated those hours in you doing it? Right? It's just like in the counseling arena. For you to be a counselor, you have to not only have the qualifications, but you also have to have the number of hours, right? That is verified by a seasoned counselor. And that becomes part of your packet for you to be certified in that state. So it's like, because we want the attention, because we want this, well, that kind of runs into the issue. And so we give wave top information, over talking, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the day, it's only because I want you to view me as this, right? So now this becomes my identity because that's how I want to rebrand myself. And you're right. Here's divine appointment. It takes hours. And there's a lot you're going to learn about yourself. And I promise you, if you haven't gotten to the point to where you've questioned yourself in the space, then I don't think you've really put in the hours to do that thing. And that could be a number of different things, whether we're talking coaching and counseling, whether we're talking whatever you think about it, whether you're talking somebody trying to be a preacher in a church, right? You wake up the next morning and say, hey, I'm gonna start a church. The next thing you know, you got this backyard ministry, right? And this backyard ministry, you got like 5 people showing up, which is cool. Then that 5 grows throws to 50. Well, how many of those people have you ever had to sit down with and listen to them share their issues and what they're dealing with in life? And you talk to them from a space of not necessarily how you feel about what they're going about, not you passing your judgment on what Brother Johnson did or what Sister Johnson did, but talking to them through what the word actually said as it pertains to their situation. That's kind of like what we're talking about in relation to this. Like, I know I kind of morphed when it comes down to being clear and concise and whatever the case may be, but that's the world that we live in, to where we don't necessarily know if a person knows the thing that they say that they say that they know, that they say that they know, right? And because they're just saying it, well, you don't have a choice but to believe it. Why? Because it's social media.
I forgot what you. I'm on the backyard again, man. Ask the question again. How would you summarize? Oh,
Yeah,
no, I already got that.
yeah, we were still here. We ran through the comments, and he was responding.
Okay.
Cause I was just talking about the network marketing strategy. You know, if once you get someone interested, it's okay. Because I think it was his divine who said it's okay to not know something. You know, and so I'm like, is that not also true in the pattern of how we even with this format when we was in church or whatever the case may be? Oh, just come listen to my pastor preach. Oh, come talk to my brother. I remember one time I had to call our crazy friend all the way in St. Louis because someone asked a question I didn't have the answer for right then, and I'm like, I know someone who reads probably more than I do, you know. And I called them on three-way, you know, and but that pattern. So that was just kind of what he was speaking of in response.
See, and I think even with network marketing, people who think network marketing, it doesn't work. No, it does work, but it takes a certain discipline that most people aren't willing to push forward. And so now you got teams, now you got people who do know. And that's in life itself. Everybody, when I was in the military, my leader told me, you don't have to know everything. Just know somebody who knows what you need to know. And then you have all your information. So in life, you can walk around and act like you know everything, or you can act like you have everything all together, or you can live, learn, and continue to grow like everybody else. And as you continue to grow, teach somebody else what you know. And I don't know, network marketing ain't a bad thing. It's just a thing that's not for everybody.
And that's what Sister Lisa Keys was saying. She said every structure we are a part of is network marketing. Just think into it. Just think about it. So yeah, she's right. I agree. Um, we coming up on our. We got a little bit of time to get into the fourth maximum, and then this one I think, well, it depends on everybody who thinks which one is more important. But this one stood out because it kind of summarizes the whole conversation, which is the maximum of relation, which is to be relevant, right? This is the relevancy principle, right? For when you talk about the relevancy principle, it's pretty simple. It's be relevant, right? Be relevant to the conversation, right? We kind of, and that's why I felt like it was a summary. Be relevant, be clear, right? It's not run all over the place. So with this one, I actually wanted to bring up some examples, and then see how we go forward, right? So in these question answer scenarios, right? I'm gonna give you three responses to the question, and you could tell me if the answers are relevant. Also, could they be more relevant, or is it fluff, or is it just BS? However you want to answer, I had to say it that way. However you want to answer it, right? So the first question that was asked says, "What time are we meeting at the movies?" Right? That's the question. The first answer is, well, the movie starts at 8:30.
That ain't what I asked you, Cletus.
Yeah, that's not an answer.
All right. How about did you hear that Jack Black's supposed to be in this movie?
Don't care.
Okay. Well, we're gonna meet at 8:15.
Okay.
That's the
Meet.
answer.
Well, yeah, that's an answer because where we meeting at? We meet at my house, at your house. We meet at the movie theater. It's still some filling that we need to do.
The question was, what time are we meeting at the movies?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is the third one. So at 8:15, we'll be there.
Yeah. And go with that one.
Okay. I'm just asking. I like how y'all jumped on that. Y'all ain't even give me a chance, man. So the next question that y'all asked me is, what should I bring to the party? Well,
BYOB.
hey, that's always the text back when you're in the army. I'll tell you that. I promise.
Bring your own barbecue for y'all alcoholics out there. That's what I mean.
And I guess I was an undercover alcoholic, because that's what So once again, let me know, is it relevant or is it fluff or whatever? The first answer is I'm gonna have burgers, ribs, and all kind of stuff there.
That ain't what I asked you, Cletus.
Okay, my bad. Well, we still need water, drinks, chips. We need some more food. We
need some clarity.
Passive aggressive.
I like that. Because that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Answer 3.
Direct, straight to the point.
It's that simple.
Can't go wrong with telling me what you want.
Be relevant. The questions, and these were started out with questions, but just understanding the conversation that you're in. Be relevant. All that extra stuff we need. Well, we need this. We need that. We need this. The topic at hand is, what do I need to bring? Paper plates, tracking. How many people gonna be there? So I know how much to bring, But I like that. What I don't like though is that we are up on our hour, and it is time for our bittersweet moment for us to go into our final thoughts. And I know I just thought about it. I know I didn't put one out. So yeah, we'll start with shift happens, mindset, and I'll trail in behind her.
We talked about how relevance fuels massive growth and the secret to long-lasting success. And pretty much it all starts with character. And your character having, whether that's faith-based or not, when you're dealing with people, it has to deal with integrity. It has to deal with you having a sense of integrity about yourself, about your purpose, having a purpose, making sure that your purpose and your integrity marry, so that you aren't talking out of two sides of your mouth. And when you deal with this and people see you to be who you say you are and to be an upstanding person, you'll see that people can trust what you say because they understand they can trust who you are. That's all I have.
I think this is a pretty easy one. It's just understanding conversation. You're not the most important person in the conversation. We communicate with others because we're relaying information, sharing information, so forth and so on. And so if that's the case, I need to make sure that I'm communicating with that other person to the degree that they understand it. So again, if I can't explain a thing to a 7th grader, I don't know it well enough to even talk about it. So I need to be relevant in the conversation. How am I able to gauge relevancy? Through the understanding of the other person, which means I have to include them in the conversation. I have to ask questions. I have to take pauses to allow them the opportunity to speak. Sometimes we just kind of bombard people with information because we love the sound of our own voice. That's not good. That's not healthy. Remember, you're not the most important person in the conversation. And at the end of the day, leave room for them to respond and talk to you as well. Trust me, if I am in a conversation with you and all I got to do is listen to you talk, you don't have to worry about talking with me much after that. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I love this conversation, and for me, as I said towards the end of the conversation, that the relevancy principle was important to me. To me, I feel like it's the foundation for clarity. I don't care how articulate you are, how well spoken you are, how well laid out your 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 answer is. If it's not relevant to what is being talked about, it will become confusing. I remember being a young preacher, and I was just excited to listen to other preachers preach. And when you how I'm thinking about, and when you listen to a lot of preachers when they preach, sometimes I used to hear a lot of dead spots, like, man, they got to build this thing back up. But the problem was, sometimes somewhere in the lines of the sermon, we got to a point to where things were no longer relevant. Thing Things were no longer in line with what they started off with. They kind of read right and read left, trying to add time so we can get to that whatever time frame it is that you may feel a sermon needs to be. And I feel like you lose people there, and people get lost in those sermons and leave with nothing. And all of that preaching, all of that hooping you did, all of that information and studying you didn't pay off because you lost the conversation. You went off, and it's no longer relevant. And now we're here and we're confused on what we're talking about. Um, with that said, man, that's really all I have for this one. But with that said, I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed being here with my brothers. Listen, do me a favor. If you are new to this platform, follow us on all our platforms. Follow us here on YouTube. The Innovative Consulting Solutions and Services. Follow him on Facebook. You on LinkedIn. I don't know what all he on. TikTok. But you can follow all of the panel. Follow each other. Uh, we have a lot of things going on. What is this? This is the fourth Saturday. Fifth. This the fifth Saturday. So what's the fifth Saturday?
Well, because we had a conference this month, tomorrow is reframing the image of relationships.
Okay, yeah, because we had it last Raj. Uh, so you can catch us here tomorrow morning. Is it 10:30 Eastern Standard Time?
hmm
Right back here on YouTube. Great conversations, and it's always empowering. If this empowered you and empowered your thinking, I promise you tomorrow we'll continue the pattern here. Um, for Sunday, I believe we're on your channel, right? On TikTok, on Dwayne Dwyer's the Mindset Coach. You can find them there at the underscore mindset underscore coach. And let's just continue to build. Let's continue to grow. Hey, let's use this tactic that we just found out that we should be using anyway, right? This network marketing tactic is, if you're interested and you have questions, listen, bring them over. Let them listen to the podcast. Listen, Sister Lisa Keys got all the answers. Sometimes I feel like, yeah, I love you, sis. You know we gotta bother you. But it's been a good show. Did you have something else, Coach? Look like you was about to. Okay,
No, I'm good.
it's been a good show. Enjoyed you all tonight. Y'all have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see y'all moving forward.